So the last few weeks, I've been enjoying my time within the Black Myth Wukong. To be fair, the last few weeks I've been playing on my PS5 and my PC port of the Black Myth Wukong constantly, and I finished this game already three times, two times on my PC and one time on my PS5 port. I gotta say that it's been a very long time I haven't enjoyed the game the way I've been enjoying the Black Myth Wukong itself, the form of the artistic and creative freedom that they made in this game. It is a game that truly speaks to me to the heart because these are the type of games and universes that I loved and I grew up with, watching animes from that came from Asia itself, animes from from Studio Ghibli, animes like Dragon Ball, and recently even One Piece. These unique universes has always been something that has intrigued me if it comes to the Asian culture, just in generally itself. And to be able to get to play this as a gamer, this is simply just a cherry on a cake for me. So, as playing this game and also knowing I'm a hardcore Soulsborne gamer itself, I've been playing the Soulsborne game since day one, and I'm talking about way back in the days of Demon Souls itself, way back before you youngsters came into the Soulsborne universe with the Elder Ring. Me and other gamers itself, we've been the OGs if it comes to the Soulsborne games. So seeing other games trying to interpret the Souls universe and of course the Souls mechanics is always something I'm always been sceptical about, because some games truly manage to do it correctly and some game truly fails about it. And I have to say that a Black Myth Wukong falls on the latter itself. That is one of those games that truly makes it an effort, and even though they don't try to be like a Soulsborne game, they do have those mechanics that is unfeudable, related to the Soulsborne universe and how for software made the game so popular itself. Even though they don't want to admit it in the Black Myth Wukong, it is there. You can visually see where they got the artistic input from. It's visually there. But the question is, of course, as me playing it through it, how good is it? Is it mediocre? Is it even better than the original creators itself? In many ways, yes. Black Myth Wukong does a lot of things a lot better than for software managed to do in the recent years. And most importantly, if you put it side by side with from software newest expansion from DLC, The Elder Ring Shadow of the Earth 3, how's that was been developed himself. I have to say that Black Myth Wukong checks the marks much better, and most importantly in the combat and the fluidity within the combat and the boss mechanics itself. Because what made the Soulsborne game so unique is not the difficulty of the games itself, it's the accessibility and of course the but most importantly fairness in your boss battles. And that is the thing that I found that Black Myth Wukong does a little bit much better than the Elder Ring has done recently in all the games that they have been releasing so far. Now, there are a lot of you guys probably going to speculate, Ash, now, is Black Myth Wukong a Souls-like, a Soulsborne, or a Souls-lit type of a game? Let me just whip the bandage very quickly and tell you guys that Black Myth Wukong is not a Souls-like. A lot of people have been referring towards Black Myth Wukong just because you have Souls-like elements into the mix itself, and I'm talking about it has a checkpoint system like a bonfire that we know from the Dark Souls, or if you're an Elder Ring player, then I'm talking about then the side of grace that you always have to respawn yourself if you die, of course, and replenish your health, and of course leveling yourself up. It also has a boss mechanic system where the most important encounters you have in the game are the bosses itself, and the way you get the most XP itself. It also have the dodging and the blocking mechanics, and of course based on your stamina pool, that's very much known within the Soulsborne universe how their fighting mechanics works. But there is where the similarity truly stops himself, because a lot of games have a blocking and a dodging system within there, and also have their own healing system in there. And I'm talking about the flask you have, because in the Black Myth Wukong, in places using a healing flask, using a gourd. I can see the similarity within that, but a lot of people are saying yes, okay, it's very much a Souls-like because it has so specific in it, but it's not really the case, because first of all, Black Myth Wukong plays himself more of a story-driven game itself. A Dark Souls game, of an Elder Ring, of a software game, it's not truly a story-driven game. For software, it's known having the purpose of the D&D mechanics within the universe itself, where the story of the game is there, but you have to artificially put it together through all different trinkets that you find left and right, the way you are eventually going to understand the story of the game itself. First of all, Black Myth Wukong doesn't tell you that way of storytelling. Black Myth Wukong truly has a story-driven aspect in it, where you understand the story further you go into the game itself, in form of cinematic cutscenes and etc and etc and etc. Another thing that's really different within the Souls-like, the Soulsborne universe, that I personally think why it's not a Souls-like, is because you have a progressive system and a skill systems, where your skills is based on a cooldown. In a Soulsborne games, your skills are not based on a cooldown. And yes, you have an experience-based game itself, where your experience that you gain from fighting monsters are important, that you use it afterwards to level up your skill points. But in the Soulsborne universe, is the moment that you die, you lose all your points, your skill points, unless you manage to able to retrieve it on the last point of death. And Black Myth Wukong is not the case. In Black Myth Wukong, the moment you die, your skill point is still yours, it's still accessible for you, you don't lose it. That's a very important thing that it needs to be mentioned. And another thing is that within this Black Myth Wukong, you have a tier list of your gears itself. So every single gear that you use have a form of a tier list. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and I'll even say tier 4, the legendary aspect of all of it. There is no Soulsborne game that has that level form of tier list if it comes to the gear aspect that you have. Yes, and yes, you're gonna have gears that is a little bit better than the other one. If it comes to, for example, in the Elden Ring, if you are a rich player like myself, we don't wear a gear. You could say I have a tier 0 unless I use, for example, gears from whatever balls I fought, a Vanilla or whatever, and I use those type of gear. You can see, okay, that's a tier 2, but technically it doesn't work like that in the Elden Ring, because all gear, okay, they give you the necessary poise that you need to survive certain form of encounters, but it did not specifically give you that level of that gives you the necessary perks and survivability if it comes to progressing into the game itself. I know a lot of you guys not gonna go, but as you have gear sets like the Rakasha sets and the Elden Ring, the White Mask of Vare, and the Death Knight sets, and so many other sets that give you those specific buffs. If you equip them, of course, it depends on your playstyle and your build, will give you a certain form of damage output and increase, of course. I understand that, but it's still not the case. It's still not the same way that the Black Myth Wukong applies its gear sets. And Black Myth Wukong, you truly have the specific type of leveling gear sets that is really important if it comes to how you're trying to engage and play the game itself. Every single gear set has a unique perk, and how you use those perks is really going to define the strength of your Sang Wukong itself. And I find that it's very important that we distinguish this type of aspect, and really is trying to solidify that Black Myth Wukong, even though it has Souls-like elements in it, and yes, as well, you are playing as the Destined One, and the Elden Ring you are the Tarnished One, and in Dark Souls you are the Ashen One. And also one thing, I do see the similarities where they were going towards to, and they are heavily inspired by the Soulsborne game and the Soulsborne universe. That has to be said, they are heavily inspired by it, but they managed to do it in a certain way that they use the best thing within the Soulsborne universe and trying to make it their own unique thing. That's the thing I can only applaud. But what is Sang Wukong? Who is Sang Wukong itself? Sang Wukong is a very old and very rich literature from the 16th and 17th centuries in China itself, that has been revived, of course, and revamped for the modern audience in the form of a video game. It tells himself the story of the Monkey King itself, who and his journey to the West itself, and most importantly India, and trying to protect monk Zhong Yang in order to return the holy scripture of the Buddha back to China itself. But the story of Sang Wukong, like I said, is extremely rich, and I do advise you to go and read the literature of it, because it's one of the richest literature you're going to read in your young life, hands down. By you playing, of course, as the distant one, circumstances happen themselves into the game, and we're not going to go in spoiler aspect for those who haven't played the game yet. Son Wukong get himself captured, trapped, and of course reborn 500 years later as the distant one, as you as a young ape and volunteering to find the 6 grand relics of Son Wukong and hope to reviving Wukong back to your universe and of course the world that you live in right now. Because in this timeline, 500 years later, after the journey of the rest of the original Son Wukong, your fellow apes are being discriminated and hunted down. So the grand sage within your tribe is looking for a volunteer for the one unique ape who's going to be the chosen one, the distant one, who has the courage and the strength to go after the 6th relic of Wukong and eventually to bring him back to life. That is your journey, and it brings you to a very, very beautiful story which you are refighting and of course re-challenging the same enemies that Son Wukong has fought in his journey moving forward and hope to establish the order back. This game, Black Myth Wukong, is in any shape or form a linear game. Your very first chapter as you play into the game itself, like in any other Soulsborne game, the very first chapter is more an introduction towards what is coming for you. So you're going very much to a boss rush from one boss to another boss. And the very first chapter is the only chapter that's truly linear. After the second chapter that you truly play, you start seeing how big in the game it truly is. Because after the second chapter, the game is vast, it's fully immersive, and it has a lot of hidden secrets, hidden areas, zones, and enemies, and unique enemies and NPCs for you to find, with tons of side quests you can easily miss if you're not paying attention to the small hidden clues that they are giving to you in a proper D&D mechanic itself. If it comes to the stability of the game itself, I have to say that in my playthrough playing within Black Myth Wukong, I haven't found any form of bugs, none whatsoever, that we can consider as a game-breaking bug. For a game that is fresh from game science itself, they brought in a very, very stable game, and it's kudos to the mechanical feat that they managed to bring itself. Not only from the aesthetics of the beauty of the game that they made, but just for the stability as well. The stability is so well done that you can truly see that in the way you fight the bosses itself. And speaking of the bosses itself, yes, the bosses are challenging. So if you are a Souls gamer and you play the Elden Ring, and I'm gonna say very straight, if you play the Elden Ring from beginning to the end on level 600, 700, especially on the DLC itself, and you've been playing it with friends and summoning itself, you will find yourself that Black Myth Wukong is going to be extremely challenging. The concept that we love to call in a Soulsborne game is get good is very much established in Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong is not a game that just handholds you. It gives you the tools that you need to be able to defeat the boss, but it's very important for you to learn the mechanics of the boss itself. If you don't learn the mechanics of the boss itself, even if you have the right tools for it, you will simply not succeed. Because the higher you get into the game itself, how harder the bosses get, and you even have bosses itself that really becomes like a bullying you. I'll leave it to that. Let's say you're gonna have a certain boss that will take your healing flask the moment you are healing yourself. It will stun you as well the moment you're trying to heal yourself, just to let you know that he's the real OG in his zone. You're not, you're just a little player. I'm gonna leave it to that. I'm not gonna give it to spoilers for those who played it and know exactly what I mean about it. But the way of the immersion of this game itself, how it plays itself, is really cool. It really is establishing itself as you need to get good into the game, otherwise you're simply not going to make it. But the question is, of course, is it a game for you? And what I think my overall score if it comes to Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong is a beautiful established new universe created by Game Science itself. The very first attempt at a AAA game, and I have to say they simply swung and they hit the mark perfectly. From the world design, the boss leveling itself, the progression system itself, and the skill-based system that you have in the game itself. And yes, Black Myth Wukong has a skill tree that you need to invest to make your builds according to your playstyles, and the variety of builds and clothing styles you have is simply kudos, because it gives you an level form of replayability that you don't often see into the game itself, adding to an aspect that you don't have any microtransactions, none whatsoever, and every single thing that you find into the game itself is by achieving it, by earning it through hard work and perseverance towards the game itself. And this game is definitely a game I recommend to every single player out there, especially those who are Soulsborne gamers, who loves to be challenged in game, who loves a game that is not health holding us, and who values our time more than any single thing. Then yes, 100% this game is a game for you. Even though who are not truly come from a Soulsborne universe itself, and you love story-driven game itself with a brutal action adventure like in God of War, then it's again a game especially made for you. Comparing to the Soulsborne game, Black Myth Wukong is very much forgiving. It's very much a game that is easy accessible for every level of player itself in the atmosphere of the gaming world itself. So do not be afraid to get Black Wukong for yourself for the very first time, because you're truly gonna get not only a beautiful story and experience, and gonna be a challenging experience, but over time you start seeing that it's truly a manageable experience, and it's truly an amazing, beautiful story, and a story I never saw in a very, very long time. My overall score, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. Just not a 10 out of 10, because there's always room for improvements for any single game out there. For me, this game is an A++++. It's an S tier game. It's just simply my game of the year of 2024. I'm your host, Yashalo. Thank you very much for being here and for chilling with me. Any form of questions, whatsoever, you can always reach me on Discord, Instagram, Twitter, or Twitch, or on any given page you'll find linked in the description down below. Hope I can see you out during my live streams, and see you guys next time, man. One love only. Peace.